Hello, am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Sir, hello. Are you audible?
Yes, yes, please. Mute कर दिया ना तुमने?
आपका कोई कॉल है तो can I receive?
या आएगा नहीं, तुमको ही करेंगे ना? मतलब यहाँ से तो नहीं आएगा.
Sir,
I would like to request all the lads to
Good morning, Mr. Jayesh Ranjan.
Good morning. Good morning.
So this is Sanjay Floria from IBS Hyderabad.
Hello, Sanjay.
Yeah. So welcome to this one-day symposium on digital transformation of information of informal sector, challenges and opportunities for EdTech. So sir, I will briefly introduce you and then I will hand over the floor to you for your keynote address.
Sure.
Is that fine, sir?
Yes.
So welcome all the participants of this one-day symposium. Let me introduce Mr. Jayesh Ranjan briefly. He is an IAS officer. He is Principal Secretary to Government of Telangana, INC Department and ITE&C Department. His assignment involves developing policy frameworks, attracting new investments, identifying opportunities of utilizing IT in various government processes, and promoting digital empowerment of the citizens. So without much ado, I hand over the proceedings to Mr. Jayesh Ranjan. Welcome, sir. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Greetings to all the participants. Greeting to fellow speakers. Let me begin by congratulating FES and the IFHE Foundation for Higher Education for putting together this symposium. The theme is extremely relevant, and I should also confess that it is a theme which is not so mainstream. It is getting sidetracked in amongst all other discussions and debates that are going on. So I'm first of all very glad that attention is being drawn to this very important theme. So my congratulations to the organizers. See, I would like to point out certain very important mega trends that are happening in the world today. All of it, of course, is happening in our country as well. And some of these trends, I'll be speaking about 4 mega trends in particular. Some of these trends have been happening since almost a decade plus also. So these are not particularly relevant due to pandemic or post-pandemic, etc. Some of them have been going on for many, many years before the pandemic. Of course, it is also a reality that pandemic has changed the dynamic of some of these trends. Pandemic has, for example, exacerbated certain things. Pandemic has made certain things more urgent, more pressing, and so on and so forth. But the trends are there. The first very important trend which we notice is that the digital transformation is happening at an amazing pace. In fact, it is now a no-brainer to confess that unless you are completely optimizing all your digital opportunities, you will be missing the bus or you will be falling behind. Whatever you are, you could be an individual professional, you could be an enterprise, you could be a large corporate, you could be a mid-scale person, whoever you are, whatever economic activity, professional activity that you carry out, there are umpteen opportunities that digital provides today to help you to do your things better, more efficiently. And there's an array of digital technologies, amazing technologies that have come up. And I'm sure all of you would be knowing this. Technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning have tremendous transformational power. In fact, the power of artificial intelligence is so much that of the $5 trillion economy that India is poised to become, or at least that is the audacious goal our Honorable Prime Minister has laid before us, almost 500 million of it, $500 million of it, will be contributed through artificial intelligence alone. So that is the transformative power of technology that we are witnessing. And the technology is coming from all corners of the world. It's no more a monopoly of, let us say, the United States or advanced countries in Europe, etc. India is producing lots of technology. China is producing lots of technology. Even a small country like Bangladesh, just to give an example, we can find many innovative solutions and ideas originating from that smaller country also. So some very phenomenal work is happening in our world today, and lots of such contribution is also coming from the world of startups, from young entrepreneurs, young innovators. Not to say that large corporations are not doing anything, or R&D institutions, academic institutions are not doing anything, but a very significant portion of work, in fact, some of the most path-breaking innovation, some of the very kind of people-friendly solutions are today coming from the world of startups. So that is one trend. And how do we ride on it? How do we make the best for it? That is one part. The second very important trend that I would like to speak about is about the huge digital divide, which is also happening in parallel. While there are amazing advancements in technology, and we have seen some of the play of these technologies during the last 18 months also. In my own state of Telangana, we used predictive analytic technology very, very effectively, very efficiently to predict at least 15 days in advance the way COVID will spread in the state. And we used some of those models, some of those predictions to also decide about unlocking, reopening, and later on, I mean, in hindsight, that is, we noticed that all our decisions were right. In fact, Telangana is today considered as one of the best managed states when it comes to COVID, etc. And technology played a very important role. But so, as I said, that is one part. But the second worrying part is that was a positive story. But the worrying part is that we see huge digital divide, which began almost more than a decade ago. We always know that there will be a rural-urban divide. There'll be a divide between the rich and the non-rich. There'll be divide between even based on gender, between men and women, divide amongst between communities, and so on and so forth. But the digital divide is now kind of reaching a very alarming proportion. Despite good intentions by the government, despite well-meaning programs introduced, for some reason, the ability to penetrate to every household, the ability to get the buy-in of every citizen, that is lacking. And the digital divide also has the potential of pulling down a significant proportion of the population when opportunities of opportunities of economic advancement, opportunities of economic growth are presented. We have learned in our experience in Telangana. See, many of you would know that there is a flagship national program called Digital India. Digital India is a program wherein huge emphasis has been placed on infrastructure, like how do you provide internet connectivity to the panchayats, to the villages. In Telangana, our goal is even more audacious. We want to ensure connectivity right till the home. So each of our 8.5 million homes must have robust internet connectivity. So we do all that, and but we also have been made very painfully conscious of the fact that even if you take internet to the doorstep of a person, there are hundreds and thousands of families who will not be enamored by it. Let us say I'm an ordinary person living in a village. I went to sleep today, and tomorrow morning when I wake up, someone tells me that, hey, there is internet at your doorstep. I'm not going to jump in joy and rush out and buy a laptop or an iPad or whatever. I mean, for thousands of people, it won't even strike, it won't even register. What does it mean really to have internet at the doorstep? And of course, there are some people who will not be able to afford these kind of devices even today. And of course, their priorities are different. I won't say that no one is able to afford, because the devices also have become very cost effective. But the fact is that there are many people who have other priorities instead of investing in devices, etc. So how do you ensure the buy-in of a common person into the digital world? And in Telangana, the experience is that while creating infrastructure is all right, but that is not the end of it. I mean, there is much more that needs to be done. And our experience has shown that one of the most effective things is to ensure that the most pressing problems the common man or the common family face, we show the solutions, a technology-enabled solutions rolling out before their eyes. So if you are able to show to them that, see, with the help of this technology, you were able to get your pain point alleviated, that will give them more confidence that technology is there for the common good also. And that will also give them that confidence that technology, particularly digital technology, is not an elitist phenomena. It is not just for people who sit in cities, who speak English, who know, who are men of means. Only they can realize this technology. So that is the second mega trend. The third very important trend, which I would like to point out, is that the nature of work, the nature of jobs is also undergoing a massive transformation. It is, of course, linked to the two. So at the end of it, you'll realize that all these four trends have lots of interconnectedness, things, dynamics which happen in one sphere influence the other spheres also. And therefore, we need to take a holistic view. So as I mentioned, the opportunities to get into an organized sector employment is not as much or as viable as it was, let us say, 3 decades ago or 4 decades ago, and so on and so forth. And it is not because there are no jobs altogether, but the nature of jobs vis-a-vis the nature of skills that people have, there is a huge amount of mismatch. There are jobs where for which there are no takers, and then there are people for whom there are no jobs. In fact, there's a very puzzling thing, but it's quite common in India and very common in Telangana as well. I'll point out to something interesting. See, whenever a public selection happens, let us say of police constables, or let us say panchayat secretaries, it is very common to read in the newspapers. So for example, let us say police constable recruitments are happening. It won't surprise anyone at all when you see a news item in the paper that 10,000 BTechs have applied for a police constable job. So on the face of it, it appears very puzzling, and gives a sense that perhaps things are very, very sorry that 10,000 BTechs have to apply for a police constable job. It also gives a misleading kind of an impression that the engineering sector or the manufacturing sector or the technology sector is stagnating. Therefore, 10,000 people could not get jobs in that sector. And therefore, just to manage their livelihoods, they are appearing for a constable exam. But the reality is very different. There are enough number of jobs in the engineering sector, manufacturing sector, technology sector. But those 10,000 people who are today appearing for the police constable jobs, they will never fit into it because they did not acquire the kind of skills which makes them eligible and competent to get into this sector. And therefore, they have no other choice but to get into a police constable job. I'm not demeaning the police constable job at all. I mean, please do not get that sense that I'm looking down upon a police constable's job. I'm just giving this as an illustration. And this is how newspaper articles are written. That 10,000 engineers are appearing in police constable exams. 20,000 engineers are appearing in the village panchayat secretaries posts, etc., etc. So I'm just kind of speaking about what appears regularly, quite commonly in public domain in our country, in my state of Telangana. So how do you look at the nature of job and the skill sets that are required to do that job? And again, I spoke about the digital divide. I spoke about the amazing phenomena the technology is bringing in. All these factors bring a very important, another important trend into focus, which is on how do you ensure that if India is aspiring to become an economic superpower, if we want to ensure a country with $5 trillion worth of economy, where the human resources, as all of us know, we are also in the middle of a demographic phase where the population of young people is much more, what is called as demographic dividend. But we all know that this potential dividend can also become a demographic liability if the utilization of this manpower, the human resources that our country possesses, if that is not channelized into productive ways. So the fourth point, the fourth trend that I want to highlight is something which I also noticed in the position paper which the organizers of this symposium has shared with me. They mentioned a couple of very, very pertinent points. One of their observation is that in the informal sector, large number of man hours, large number of manpower, large number of human resources are diverted, deployed. And the underlying, the backstory, the underlying subtext is that these people or these resources can be more gainfully employed, more productively engaged if we were able to enhance their skills. This is something which, in my opinion, will be very defining for the country's future growth trajectory. To what extent we are able to capture the capabilities of the young population, use digital technologies or the innovation which is happening in the digital world as the mechanism, take all cares to bridge the digital divide that very truly and worryingly is prevalent in our country and in many other parts of the world as well. And how do you find right kind of jobs for them? And of course, when I say jobs, I do not always mean organized sector jobs. It can be entrepreneurship, it can be employment. In fact, as the trend shows, some of the best minds today, some of the most talented people today are no longer getting into organized sector jobs. Many of them are becoming entrepreneurs. And I again say this with lots of personal anecdotal evidence. So I'm not very sure about IFHE, the IFHE institutions, but I sit on the board, for example, of IIIT Hyderabad. I'm on their board for the last 7 years now. And every year around this time, roughly around January, February or so, when we have our board meeting, the institute director tells us about the placement. And of course, it's very heartening to see the placement trends year after year after year. The IIIT students get better jobs, higher paying jobs, more number of companies come to their campus to recruit, and all that makes for very pleasant reading and hearing. But invariably, I ask one question in these board meetings when the placement data is being discussed. And the question that I ask is that how many students chose not to participate in the placement? And of course, the numbers, some numbers are shown. And then if you do a deep dive on those numbers, who are those people who chose not to come to the placement? You'll find 2-3 interesting patterns. So of course, there are some students, as we all know, historically, many Indian students go abroad to do further studies. They do their MS, they do their PhDs. America is a very common destination. So lots of students from IIIT also go to the US. So obviously, they have nothing to do with the placements. Some number of students choose to change their careers. They get into MBA, or some of them write civil services exams and all that. So they do not participate in the placement process. But there is an increasing trend, and this number has become very significant now, in at least in IIIT, and I'm sure it is happening, or it is sooner going to happen in very many other institutions of higher learning also, which is that those students have decided to start their own enterprises. They want to become entrepreneurs. They have their own ideas, their own plans. Instead of seeking jobs, they are keen to create their own companies in which they will give jobs, through which they will give jobs to others. So that trend is also rising. So when I say jobs, it's not just an organized sector job, be it in the public sector or in the private sector, but also a whole new world of entrepreneurship, etc. So as I said, this is a very appropriate time to think of those challenges. But as I said, when we are thinking of those challenges, we need to keep in mind all these big trends that are happening. What kind of new jobs, new age jobs are coming? In every sector, there is now a disruption. And of course, when I speak about disruption, I'm repeatedly mentioning that I'm not speaking about the pandemic-induced disruption alone. Pandemic-induced disruption is there for sure, but there have been many things which have preceded the pandemic happening for the last decade, couple of decades, 15 years, and so on and so forth. So this is something which requires a very deep analysis of what kind of drivers or engines of economic growth are going to come up, what kind of skill sets those engines will require, how do you ensure that every employable every member of that population segment who has work productivity available can be skilled to meet those job requirements, and how do you use digital technologies effectively to do that. So in this context, in the context of these 4 trends, the theme of today's symposium on how do you make tech companies participate in this process becomes very relevant, very interesting. I myself know that I'm the secretary looking after the information technology subject in the government for more than 6 years now. And I myself have interacted with lots of edtech companies. And I know that edtech companies, as the position paper also mentions, are more focused on school level processes, college level processes. How do you ensure better learning outcomes? How does the child is monitored in a very personalized way? How does the child get supplemental information? If you are a school administrator, what kind of learning management systems can be introduced so that you are able to, as an administrator, you are able to understand the larger picture, the bigger picture, and take evidence-based decisions, etc. So this is where most of the edtech is happening. Because of pandemic, certain other new areas of interest have opened up. As we know, online schooling was the way teaching learning was conducted when the schools were closed. And I know that in some parts of the country, schools are still closed. So online learning threw up their own interesting challenges on how do you deliver content, how do you engage students in the same way or at least similar way in which a regular classroom face-to-face interaction happens. How do you evaluate and assess students? How do you build the capacities of the teachers to run online programs, online classes? There are also issues of accessibility, issues of connectivity. So not everyone has got a device. Not every village has internet connectivity. So what do you do in a device-less scenario? What do you do in a connectivity-less scenario? So lots of new challenges, new questions have come up during this period of pandemic. EdTech companies have kind of risen to the challenge, but as the theme suggests, I won't say not a single company, I can't make that claim, but at least in the sphere of knowledge and interactions and networks that I have not come across anyone who is focused on developing skills in the informal segment of the population, mostly the bottom of the pyramid, the segment of population that comes from a working class background, etc. And as I said, if we want to remain inclusive, if we want the country to really become economically strong, we just can't afford to leave behind such a large segment and hope to grow and prosper and thrive. So, but at the same time, if you look at the innovations that the EdTech sector has brought in, I can say this with 100% certainty that they have it in them to really come up with innovative solutions, products, etc. It is just that we need to kind of pose this challenge before them. And I know that in various other contexts, hackathons or running a national challenge or giving an opportunity for EdTech providers to deploy their solutions in a POC mode, where the government assures them that they will be the first buyer if the solution succeeds. They get motivated if these kind of enabling factors are created around them. So if FES, ICFAI, Foundation of Higher Education are serious about this theme, as on behalf of the Telangana government, I'll be very happy to run these kind of challenges. Many of you would know that over the last 7 years, we have created a very thriving innovation ecosystem in Hyderabad, in the rest of the state. We have amazing role model incubators, accelerators, a whole lot of supportive and enabling innovation ecosystem, etc. And what we have done in various other sectors is today the talk of the country, talk of the world, etc. So we'll be very happy to join hands and run challenge programs or scouting programs to get EdTech solutions meant for skill building in the informal sector or in the informal population. So I would also look forward to getting ideas and thoughts from the other speakers who are going to speak in this symposium. I'm not saying that there are no ideas also available or we are bereft of ideas. They might not have been put into practice, but I'm sure, in fact, even the simple EdTech solutions which have come up of late in a deviceless kind of scenario, how do you develop, how do you deliver teaching learning content in a connectivity less scenario, how do you deliver content? Lots of solutions have been found, have been tried out, and many of these have the potential to be replicated in the skill domain as well. So again, as I said, very happy to support these ideas, very happy to collaborate with the originator of these ideas, and I'll be personally very committed to do more work in this sector. So once again, I congratulate the organizers for putting together such a important symposium, giving me the chance to be a part of it. But I look forward to a long-term and continued engagement rather than this becoming just a one-off kind of thing. So thank you very much for inviting me. Have a very productive and useful rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jayesh Ranjan, for a very rousing address on this topic. As you rightly said, digital transformation was already happening. Pandemic just exacerbated it. And thanks a lot for your offer to join hands with the Institute and FES and the university to come up with interesting solutions which could help the informal sector and the economy in general. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for your time. And we are very grateful that you agreed to deliver the keynote address. Thank you, sir.